Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us, which we really appreciate. Today we have a terrific show. I know I always say that, but today I'm at least halfway serious. Today we have a legendary Hall of Fame angler out of the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Ted Takasaki is one of the top competitors on the FLW Walleye Tour and has dominated many of the past PWT Professional Walleye Tour events. Ted won the prestigious PWT Classic Championship of 1998 and also the 1995 PWT Top Gun Angler Award. In 2002, Teddy smashed the all-time one-day PWT record with a record limit of 5 walleyes that weighed 53.2 pounds. Now, that's an average of over 10 pounds per fish, which means he must have had some in there that were way over 10 pounds. Teddy is also known as one of the best multi-species anglers in this country. Ted holds lots of seminars around the USA, and he's hosted lots of TV shows, and he's also considered one of America's leading walleye experts. And then, as if that weren't enough, my. What else do we have in the bag, Lynn?
We have so much.
We have
Ron Lindner.
We'll have Ron for you ranting about something. We have Larry Whiteley, who's going to be giving us the Outdoor World Report.
We have Sammy Lee.
I'm sorry. Sammy is actually talking to D. Thomas today, who is the father of flipping. I admire D. Thomas quite a bit because I've been a disciple of flipping for at least the last years. Then we have good old what's-his-name,
Wade Bourne.
Of course, Wade Bourne.
Yes.
How could I forget Wade Bourne? Wade is going to be giving us a report on something about hunting. What, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's insightful, and Wade is great. So that's it. That's it, kids. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
Hi, folks. Ron Lindner here for Lindner's Angling Edge Television. Still seen on the Pursuit Channel. We're going to be on all kinds of channels. Comes the first of the year, but we're still playing on the Pursuit Channel. I'm also here on behalf of Seafoam, the world's greatest gas and diesel additive that keeps everything going. Boats, motors, or all kinds of stuff. If it's got a motor and it runs, Seafoam runs it. And so I'm here on their behalf. Okay, the topic today is for lack of a better word, it's social disconnects. Social disconnects. It seems that a boy, 17-year-old student at Lassiter High School in Georgia named Cody Chitwood has been arrested and charged with carrying a weapon in a school safety zone. After police found he had a fishing knife in one of his tackle boxes, which were located in his car along with his fishing rods. He says, I enjoy fishing. I go fishing probably once a week, sometimes twice a week, Chitwood said. I just forgot it was there. I had the fishing rods in my car as well. It seemed that the administrators of the school had a random canine search of the parking lot, and they went by the cars, and of course, earlier, this kid is also a hunter, he had a shotgun, and he shot in the residue from black powder. The dog smelled it, so they searched the car. They opened up. There was a tackle box in there with a fishing knife, but probably a Rapala fishing knife. It was a what? At any rate, here's where the game goes. First of all, I want to mention something at this point. My son James, James is now 54, 55 years old now. When he was young and he used to go to school here, he'd go up and before he'd take a bus, he used to run a trap line for muskrats and mink. And he had a pistol, a small .22 pistol, and a knife. And he would check his traps on the way up to school and coming back. The bus would drop him off, and there's a river and a creek that runs by my house, and he'd get off there with his school books, and he'd go check his trap lines. My son James had a pistol and a knife in a school bag forever. Was nothing up there. It's what we do. It's never any problem. Now, I understand the concern of parents. I'm a parent of 7 children, and of course, what's going down in these schools today is an absolute crime. It's a crime that's even happening. It's a blot on our society. So naturally, the people should be concerned and watch stuff. What bothered me is after the principal looked through there, they didn't understand the difference. Following his up-and-coming graduation plans, Chitwood planned to go in the United States Air Force. It was very worried that this misunderstanding, which actually led to an arrest, might not make that possible. He should have never been arrested. It's that the social disconnect comes, the society is veering off in one way, and reasonableness, and that now, I can understand, again, I can understand the principals of school, but that they followed through is where they should go into the school and say, wait a second, guys. But look, is there no brain power? You made a rule, and it's hard and fast, and you cannot make an exception. You don't understand it because you don't understand fishing, or in the case of trapping, it's beyond your scope. It's a social disconnect. And I believe as we continue to go further and further and further, by the way, I usually do a little piece on nature fakers and nutcases. And in Minnesota here, the howling for wolf groups is howling again. And headed by, of all things, a psychiatrist in the city, Maureen the psychiatrist, and her Howling for Wolves group, and who thinks all wolves are great and everybody they should walk in backyards. Of course, she lives in a compound that never gets out of her little world. And this is where the social disconnect comes. And it's probably going to get worse and just make more and more and more problems. I personally am sick. But here's a kid that likes to fish, carried a fishing box in his trunk of his car to take him to school. And they don't have the sense to say, oh, okay, we don't do this no more. We got to watch it, because explain to the kid that there's problems. Leave your box with your knife, and that's the end. Yet the arrest continued. They had to get an attorney. The people there, the administrators, didn't have the sense because of the bureaucracy. It's a sick world. Anyway, that's Ronald, and they're calling in for now. And until later, let's keep an upper lip and try to understand that each of the outdoorsmen, that these social disconnects are going to continue and perhaps get worse. That's it for now. See you later, folks.
Larry Whiteley and the Outdoor World Report are proudly brought to you by the brand new Rototail, the world's first and only plastic worm with a soft rotating spinner tail. The patented tail generates unbelievable vibration that you and the fish can actually feel, just like a spinnerbait or a crankbait. See it at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
Late pheasants coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Have you ever wanted to disappear into the woods? Have you ever wanted to tie your own flies, but never taken the time? Have you ever wanted to speak turkey? then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
Now, if you travel to hunt pheasants, you might think about making your trip 2 or 3 weeks after opening day. Most pheasant hunters think opening weekend with its uneducated, unhunted birds is the best time to hunt pheasants. Fact is, though, the weather can be hot, affecting your dog's endurance and sending ability. Many years, the fields aren't harvested opening day either. Pheasants will hide among the standing crops where you can't go after them. And if you don't have a place to hunt lined up long before opening day, you might not find one. And public lands will be very crowded. 2 or 3 weeks after the season begins, the crops will be in, the weather will be cooler, and the crowds will be gone. Plus, there'll be lots of birds left for a successful hunt. Remember, too, that all pheasants will not be in the fields. Some will hide in the woodlots if they can't go anywhere else. The best pheasant woods have creek bottoms, bushes, or brush piles to hide in. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Thanks a lot, Larry. And I've known Larry for many, many years. In fact, I visited him at Bass Pro Shops many years ago when he was just a mere stripling, Lynn. That's right, he was a mere young lad. Speaking of young lads, we have a guy who is in the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame as a legendary angler. Who might that be, you might ask? That would be none other than Ted Takasaki. Ted is probably best known as Mr. Lindy. Mr. Lindy. That's going to be a big surprise to the listeners, but that is Ted. Ted is a legendary walleye angler. He was president of Lindy Tackle, one of the nation's largest freshwater fishing tackle manufacturers for many, many years. And during that time, he excelled. That company excelled under his leadership. Rather than me prattle on and talk about Teddy and his exploits, let's just say hello to Teddy himself. Here he is, Ted Takasaki himself. Hello, Teddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right there, Alex. How about you?
I'm doing great. Listen, tell me about the highlights of your storied fishing career. You're mostly known as a multi-species and walleye angler. What were some of the big wins that you would savor the most in your life?
Oh, one of the high points have got to be the 1998 Professional Walleye Trail Championship. It was like the first $100,000 payout in walleye history, and they've gotten bigger since then, but that was the first one. So it was a great victory in front of a lot of fans, and so that was certainly very exciting. But being inducted into the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame is also a great honor. So I've been blessed to be able to make a living in this business. I've met a lot of great people, traveled all over the country fishing, and I got nothing but great things to say about the industry and the people associated with it.
Are you still fishing competitively?
That's my primary job now. I'm no longer president at Lindy Fishing Tackle. In fact, shareholders and we sold the company, and I haven't been affiliated with Lindy for the last few years. So, things always change, and that's how that kind of thing goes. But it was a great experience while I was there. I was there as president for 10 years. Grew the company, doubled revenue, and increased profit by a great deal, and so we had a great time there at that fishing tackle company.
Lindy is almost synonymous with walleye fishing. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, it has been certainly throughout the years. Although now a company called Pradco purchased Lindy,
right?
And Pradco is more a bass-oriented company, but they're trying to make some inroads in the northern territory with walleye, and it was probably one of the reasons why they did it.
Pradco has been gobbling up big brands in all kinds of niches, and I guess Lindy was just one of those. So what has Pradco done with Lindy since you left?
Oh, from what it's hard for me to really see into the company. As far as structural or management changes, I haven't been that close to it, so pretty hard for me to to comment on that, I guess.
We're close to taking a break right now. We'll take the break, and then I'll ask you about your competitive angling career, and we'll talk some more about that, okay?
You bet.
All right, folks, stay with us. We'll be right back with Hall of Famer Ted Takasaki himself. Don't go away.
But he's got this little problem that won't go away.
We'll be back in a moment with more Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
He disappears every now and then, but it ain't whiskey and it ain't gin. No, no, he's getting walleye again.
Wow! Woo! Hold on to that, and that's a good one since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
It's one of the legendary fish catching techniques, and today we're going to hear from the fishing legend who brought it to us. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. In just a moment, we'll hear from the man they call the father of flipping, D. Thomas. But first, this message.
In the duck blind, on the deer stand, wherever you go, take HuntMate Pro, the smartphone app for hunters of all kinds. HuntMate Pro shows you the best hunting times each day, moon phase and sunrise data, plus color weather radar and extended forecasts. HuntMate Pro also gives you hunting tips and even game recipes at the touch of a finger. Take a phone photo of your trophy. HuntMate Pro puts it on the trophies page and logs the exact spot you made. Hunters in the know use HuntMate Pro. Get yours online at ConnectedLLCapps.com.
I know when I started to learn the tricky method they call flipping for big bass, it was like nothing I'd ever done before. Well, D. Thomas was the man who first brought flipping to national prominence. D, why is it that all we used to hear about was heavy cover, muddy water, big bass, and thick line?
You start talking about big bass and dirty water and heavy line, that's all. We didn't know any better because we started out with a 110-pound test shock cord and 30-pound test leader material because we didn't have no reels on the rods. That's the way it started. So naturally, we would take that on and put it on the reels. See, and that's what we did. Well, as time has gone by, we found that if you'll lighten up on the line, like go 14 or 12 or 10, depending on how much cover you got or what kind of timber you're fishing, you'll get a better fall off if it gets it. We started fishing plastics with them. And I know what it takes to win because I've won an awful lot of tournaments. And you got to make changes constantly. If you don't make the right changes at the right time, you don't win. That's the bottom line. I don't have the skills that Larry Nixon or Ricky Klon or some of these guys do with casting and that kind of stuff. And I take my hat off to them fellas because they've done so well with a 5-foot rod. And I couldn't have done that because I didn't have the knowledge to do that. And the flipping technique sort of let me come through the back door and get in there and be able to compete with these fellas is what it's done.
Well, D. Thomas has done awfully well with it. I'll be back with more Tight Lines after this.
Is this the biggest fishing breakthrough in decades?
It's a revolutionary lure that is the most versatile plastic worm I've ever fished with.
Ever see a plastic worm with a tail that spins 360 degrees like a spinner? How does it do that? Be amazed at rototail.com. That's rototail.com. This new plastic worm effortlessly goes through any weeds and thick cover.
The unique action created by the spinning tail, along with the versatility that you can use this lure, it's amazing.
It puts to shame ordinary plastic worms that either do nothing or just wag back and forth. The tail calls fish from long distances and telegraphs what it's doing back to your rod.
The vibration that you feel on your rod tip is amazing. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that a soft plastic spinner, you'd be able to feel the thumping as it comes back to you.
Makes a great gift.
I believe that the Rototail is the next generation of plastic worm.
See it work at rototail.com. That's rototail.com.
After listening to D. Thomas talk for a few minutes, he really got my curiosity up. And one question that I had for D was, can we go flipping for big bass year-round? Well, that's a question that D. Thomas will answer on my next Tight Lines program, so I hope you'll join us. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, Tight Lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by HuntMate, the ultimate hunting app for your iPhone, and by UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers.
Follow Tight Lines on Twitter at www.twitter.com/TightLinesRadio.
Thanks, Sammy Lee. And Sammy is involved with the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. He is the guy that makes the induction ceremonies happen. And my guest, Ted Takasaki, he is considered one of America's leading walleye experts. He holds seminars across the Midwest, and he's hosted numerous TV shows, and he's a competitive angler, and he fishes all kinds of competitive events. Now, Teddy, let me ask you about the Mud Bowl, your first competitive venture. What was that all about? What was a Mud Bowl all about?
Well, that's interesting. You must have been looking up on the internet about some of my early tournaments.
No, I have Lynn on my staff, and she's an ace. You know,
she is an ace. There's no doubt about that. That was a long time ago. Yeah, that was my first competitive walleye tournament, and it was on the Illinois River. I believe like in 1988 or 89, somewhere in that time frame. But the river, we'd had like 2 or 3 inches of rain and then a snow melt. The river just came way up out of its banks, got very, very high and very muddy, and was stretched way out into the cornfields, and there was refrigerators floating down the river and a whole bunch of other stuff. But you don't like to see in a river, but, we had to fish the tournament anyway. And basically, we went out and practiced, and I think we caught 2 walleyes or 2 saugers during practice, thinking, all right, all we need to do is catch a couple and we might have a chance. Well, as it turns out, I think there was only 11 saugers or walleyes caught in 2 days of competition by 200 teams, I believe, 200 or 250 teams. And so needless to say, it wasn't a very easy tournament to fish, and we didn't get one of those saugers that we caught during practice, and we zeroed and ended up and tied, I think, for 12th place. I
fished tournaments myself where I was fishing. I actually caught a bass out of a discarded refrigerator. Did you ever score any walleye out of refrigerators?
Not out of a refrigerator, no.
This is the fall. What are you looking for fall walleye fishing? When we're fishing for walleye in the fall, what should we be looking for?
Well, certainly in the fall. When we're talking about natural lakes, usually the walleyes will move a little bit deeper and onto some sort of structure. And I like to use a big bait. When you're talking about big bait, maybe like big chubs, red-tailed chubs on a live bait rig with a big hook, about a 2-aught hook, and then a sliding slip sinker in front of that leader, and then either lip hook a red-tailed chub or tail hook them, either one of the two, and then you just want to try to bring that chub right in front of that walleye's nose on structure, and usually in that 20, 25, 30, I even caught them as deep as 45, 50 feet. So they're easy to mark at that point. So that's about what I'm doing on natural lakes. And then when it comes to the Great Lakes,
let me ask you about tail hooking a chub. It's the first time I've heard of that. When would you tail hook a chub as opposed to hook them the right way?
Well, I mean, when you're hovering right on top of them, when you tail hook the chub and you're sitting there, he's trying to swim and get away from the sinker. And then he'll thrash a little bit more, and often it will provoke a strike. So it's instead of just dragging the chub along through its lips, the chub doesn't move a whole lot.
Right.
It just kind of swims along with the sinker and the hook. When you pull against his tail, then he tries to get away, and he's moving all over the place.
Right. You're making the chub dance, basically.
Basically, you are. That's exactly correct.
And Teddy, you were going to say something else when I rudely interrupted you.
Well, I was just going to say, moving on to like the Great Lakes, the walleyes start moving in towards shallow, actually, following the gizzard shad that kind of start migrating into shallow water as the water cools down. They start moving into shallow water. I've had days where in the evenings I'll catch. In late fall, I'll catch dozens and dozens of 6 to 10 pound walleyes just by casting crankbaits right up on the breakwalls of, say, Lake Erie, and have had really good success as the water cools down. Now, when it comes to, say, rivers, I usually like to start looking for those fish. They start migrating towards the dams And, backwater channels sometimes can also find some of the nicer fish. But generally, they'll start moving up towards the dams in the holding areas where there's somewhat slack current. So those are kind of the three different main types of water that some of these bigger fish will congregate.
You're also known as a multi-species angler. Give me some other species than walleye, and tell me how to catch them in the fall.
Well, one of my favorite species to fish for in the fall, and especially the later the better, is muskies.
Really?
I feel just as comfortable going after muskies as I would walleyes, and I've done a lot of late fall fishing. It's a great time to do it. The muskies are moving in the late fall. They're looking to fatten up for the winter, and usually big bait, big fish is the general theme around that.
Right.
I'm kind of looking for these fish on rocks, shallow rocks. A lot of times I'll troll shallow running jerk baits and just crash those jerk baits right along the rocks as I'm trolling. I'll also cast big bucktails up on the rocks and then along the dying weeds. A lot of times those muskies will hang around there. Always want to be on your prime spots. If you're casting and you see a big fish moving on your bait, and then a front
Teddy,
wind direction.
That music is telling us we got to go to a break, but if you wouldn't mind coming back, we'll rudely interrupt you again, and then we'll welcome you right back, okay?
You bet.
All right. Thanks a lot, Teddy, for coming back. And, folks, we'll be right back with the Ted Takasaki himself.
Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
In the summer, it's walleye, perch, crappie, and pike.
The Wade Bowen Report is brought to you by the original Alex Langer's Flying Lure. Hey, that's my lure! Hundreds of millions have been sold on TV worldwide for over 2 decades. It fishes itself and swims away from you on its own. Catches nearly every game fish that's ever swam. See it at flyinglure.com. That's flyinglure.com.
What's the most frequent cause of failure when deer hunting? In other words, what's the biggest obstacle deer hunters must overcome to be successful? Deer expert Dr. Grant Woods believes hunters' biggest hurdle is controlling human scent. Dr. Woods says a deer's sense of smell is super sharp. Most hunters don't realize how crucial it is to keep their scent imprint to a minimum. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Hunt Radio. Today, Dr. Grant Woods offers some of the best deer hunting advice you'll ever hear.
Stay tuned for more Wired to Hunt Radio.
Cabela's is the world's foremost outfitter for hunting, fishing, camping, and outdoor gear. They offer more gear than anybody, best selection, prices, and quality, all backed by Cabela's legendary guarantee. Shopping with Cabela's has never been easier or more convenient. You can outfit all your needs through Cabela's catalogs, website, and their many stores. Check them out at Cabela's.com. Cabela's, the world's foremost outfitter. Hey, waterfowl hunters, if you need a shotgun for the new season, check out Mossberg's pumps and autoloaders. They come in black synthetic and camo finishes. They shoot 3 and 3.5 inch shells. They offer great dependability and value. Mossberg is America's oldest family-owned and operated firearms manufacturer. Check out Mossberg shotguns online at mossberg.com. Also, be watching for the new series of Mossberg Duck Commander shotguns later this fall. Mossberg, built rugged, proudly American.
This is Wired to Hunt Radio.
Dr. Grant Woods is a full-time deer researcher, and he knows what makes these animals tick. Recently, Dr. Woods told me that a deer's sense of smell is its main line of defense against predators, which includes hunters. He said deer also depend on their senses of sight and hearing, but their sense of smell is what they really rely on the most.
You can walk through the woods and sound like a deer or turkey real easy. You can have camouflage that will fool their eyes. There's great camo patterns out there anymore and great material and cloth. To avoid the nose is extremely difficult. It's impossible to 100% avoid a deer's nose, literally. But you can certainly cut your scent down with many good products out there. And not just on the stand. A lot of guys wait till they get to stand and get serious about it. I want to avoid my scent walking in and coming out So deer in the area aren't put on high alert. I want to enter an area without alerting deer, and that means thinking about how I approach my stand and how I smell while I'm on the stand and how I leave my stand, so the stand will be applicable for hunting later on in that season. Scent management is probably the number one tool of any hunter.
That's deer researcher Dr. Grant Woods. And tomorrow, Dr. Woods returns with tips on how hunters can minimize their human scent when they're in the woods. And that's today's Wired to Hunt Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks a lot, Wade. And I'll get outside with a legendary Hall of Fame angler. We have with us today Ted Takasaki. Ted is one of the top competitive anglers in the FLW Walleye Tour, and he's dominated many past PWT Walleye events. He's also one of the top multi-species anglers in America, and he hosts lots of seminars around the Midwest. He is an engaging and frequent guest on this program. And Teddy, first of all, welcome back. What is your favorite technique for muskies?
Oh, there's nothing more fun than to throw bucktails or spinnerbaits and cast them. When you bring them back and then that muskie's following you, that there's something magical about that moment when you do the start into the figure eight and that muskie grabs it. Another heart-stopping moment is if you're fishing topwater, either a prop bait of some sort or a jerk bait, and all of a sudden, and certainly at night, as you bring that prop bait and it's going boom, 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 and all of a sudden right by the boat, you start into a figure eight and that muskie flies out of the water in the dark. I mean, that is, there's nothing better than that.
Have you used muskie jitterbugs at all?
Well, I wouldn't say jitterbugs. I've used primarily a prop style bait for topwater, and then also a jerk bait or a glide bait. A prop style bait is kind of elongated, got a couple props, and they pop, they spin, make a lot of plopping noises on the surface.
Yep.
And then the other type of bait that I typically use is a jerk bait that essentially goes back and forth. You kind of walk the dog and it glides, and then it pops up on the surface and then glides again and pops up on the surface. And those are probably the two primary topwater baits that I've ever used. I haven't used a jitterbug. I mean, I know jitterbugs, you use those for bass, and but I don't own one of the bigger musky jitterbug.
The first so-called maybe glide bait or swim bait was a sluggo. They make musky-sized sluggos. Have you ever used those?
I haven't used plastic a whole lot. Some of the bulldogs and those kind of baits, I've used those, but not so much plastic glide baits. When I'm talking about a glide bait, I'm talking more one that's made out of wood.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot all about the wood glide baits. I'm so tuned into the soft plastics. So,
sure.
So
I understand.
Explain the glide bait to those people like me who have not used one.
Well, I'd consider, say, like a giant jackpot. That's like a huge zero spook. You ever heard of a zero spook?
Of course.
It goes back and forth. I consider that kind of a glide bait. There's it's kind of a cross between a glide and a jerk bait. Is essentially what you're talking about when you're talking about a giant jackpot.
Exactly.
Other types are similar to that. Where they don't sink much, and when you give it a quick jerk, and it slides through the water and it moves about 3 to 4 feet once you give it a quick jerk.
Yep.
And there's some of them that just go straight down, like suics. That'd be again kind of a jerk bait, but you can also call that a glide bait as well.
Those are very popular for muskie. Teddy, we're almost out of time. Where can people follow you on the internet?
Well, the best place to get a hold of me is I have a fan page on Facebook. Be a fan of mine, just hit the like button, and I regularly get on Facebook and send all of my followers what I'm doing, where I'm going to be, and And then also they can send me a message, and I work real hard at responding to those messages.
Okay, Teddy, I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna send you a message on Facebook and see how long it takes you to answer. All right?
You bet. It'll probably be within a couple of days, I bet.
I thought you were gonna say a couple of hours. What's a couple?
Well, it might even be that. I just don't get on all the time.
Come on, Teddy. All right, listen. Thanks a lot, and good luck.
Bet.
Good luck with fishing your tournaments. And folks, we'll be back next time on Outdoors This Week. Bye-bye.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.